It's been 1 year since Nintendo finally released the N64 Virtual Console via the Switch Online Expansion Pass service. And with that, it's been 1 year since I revisited what is regarded by many as the greatest game of all time, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And although there were some minor issues with the emulation that have since been worked out, this was still one of the most memorable gaming experiences I've had in a long time. I was lucky enough to find a Nintendo Switch N64 controller for a decent price, which helped bring the nostalgia to new heights. That weird controller optimized for someone with 3 hands, in addition to everything on the screen being an awkwardly shaped triangle as Nintendo attempted to show off 3D for the first time, brings me back to my childhood. But even without the nostalgia factored in, Ocarina of Time is still an absolute must-play for any gaming fan. Now, I was born in 1997, but I was lucky enough to have an older brother who was big into video games. This allowed me to experience the greatness of the Nintendo 64 firsthand, while most of my friends grew up with GameCube as their introduction to gaming. My brother and I would often go to our cousin's house to play his Nintendo 64 before getting one of our own. One day, when I was probably about 3 years old, we found a gorgeous gold cartridge while sorting through my cousin's games. Popping that cartridge into the console sparked a lifelong love of video games and honestly changed my life forever. The moment the game starts up, you are greeted with what is still today one of my all-time favorite melodies. The opening theme does exactly what it's supposed to do. It foreshadows the beauty and the mystery that the player will soon realize in the story without even having to say one word. At 25 years old now, I've spent most of my life playing and producing music, and really a lot of that passion and drive for the hobby can be credited to this opening theme, making me understand at such a young age that certain music really makes you feel a special way. I remember spending hours alongside my brother, working through the opening tutorial dungeon, and being absolutely blown away by the giant one-eyed spider boss at the end. I spent the rest of my time with the game just exploring the beautiful vast open world. Remember, this was around the year 2000. The internet was barely a thing, and there was no YouTube for walkthroughs, and I was 3 years old. It was only a few years later that we ended up getting our own copy of the game from a neighbor, as he had purchased a GameCube version and no longer needed his N64 copy. My brother came home from school with a walkthrough printed off on plain white paper from cheapplanet.com. That's where the game really opened up for me. The tutorial dungeon I spent countless hours mastering was just the tip of the iceberg. After making it out of the forest and finding your way to Hyrule Castle, you are introduced to the real plot of the game. Save the princess from the bad guy. It sounds generic, right? But this is not your typical damsel in distress story. This is a masterful execution of many things by Nintendo, something that they have always excelled in. Taking a simple idea and perfecting it is sometimes more difficult than reinventing the wheel. And the way Nintendo combined a powerful story, engaging gameplay, an enduring open world, and a perfect soundtrack is something that is missing from almost every modern game. The gameplay still holds up today. Ocarina of Time revolutionized the idea of traveling through time periods in a video game. This was not an entirely new concept, as games like Chrono Trigger did it before, and although Chrono Trigger did a fantastic job with this, it was only the world around you that changed. In Ocarina of Time, you change with that world around you. Once you reach a certain point in the game, you could travel back and forth from being a child to being an adult. As a child, the world is a happy, bright, and loving place, but as an adult, the world becomes a dark and almost broken one. I often wonder if Nintendo did this to symbolize how most of us view real life. As a child, the problems of the world don't seem to matter, but as an adult, we often feel like the weight of the world is resting on our shoulders. The game's combat system was also far ahead of its time. When playing modern RPGs like Dark Souls, I immediately noticed Zelda's combat influence. Blocking and countering with the right timing is essential, and it's done in a way that makes every successful sword slash feel satisfying. In conjunction with frightening, almost over-the-top boss battles after each dungeon, this is a game that makes you feel proud upon completion of a difficult fight. Ocarina of Time was not the first game to use this combat style, though it was one of the first games to do it in 3D with the ability to move in all different directions thanks to the joystick. Much like the combat, the puzzles often feel challenging but rarely overstay their welcome. You occasionally find yourself stuck on a puzzle for what feels like hours, only to laugh at the brilliance of the design once you finally find the solution. They always leave you with a sense of accomplishment once completed. So to end things off, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is still most definitely worth your time if you've never played it before. I'm sure there are thousands of videos out there telling you the same thing, but I really hope I can inspire at least one gamer who's never played it to give it a chance. The atmosphere in the game is unlike any other, and as much as I loved Breath of the Wild and am looking forward to Tears of the Kingdom, Ocarina of Time will always be my favorite Zelda game. The Nintendo 3DS remake of the game does a great job of helping the player out without giving too much away, and it's the version I'd recommend to most players on their first run-through, so I'll be giving away a copy to a random viewer in 1 month. Like, subscribe, and share the video to help give others a chance to win, and once you've done that, comment letting me know so you'll be entered. Thank you for watching my love letter to one of the best games ever.